let's get started. So today's agenda for the session would be like an introduction to cybersecurity and needs for security practices, where, and also some of the breaches that are happening across the world due to the lack of security. And the next is one of the most favorite, which gives us an essence of if you lack in security, how could actually it happen? So EA games, most everyone knows that you kind of play games everywhere on in the free time right now. So I would like to highlight some EA games breach that has happened recently, and after that, after knowing the importance of cybersecurity and the breaches because of lack of security, we will walk you through the fundamentals of security and security design principles and an introduction to AWS security. Yep, let's just jump into the slide. So, introduction to security. So, as you all know that in the current digital world, so everywhere, everything, every device is connected to the internet. So, and then you can do all of the operations from your mobile itself. You can place your orders, you can place your, you can book your tickets, you can attend the sessions, anything. Like you can do anything. So, you give your information to them. So, your information is on the internet, so anyone can see, access, and do anything like any malicious activity, so they can you know so I'm registering myself to the session, so I someone can take my information and then propose as me, like I'm Chanukya, so someone among your participants can take that my name and then you can register somewhere else. So it is all possible in the digital world right now. So cyber security is all about protecting, revolting, and reclaiming from cyber attacks. So cyber attacks are nothing but the potential, so the attacks that happen due to the vulnerability or weaknesses in a system, basically. And the cyber security is a space that gives us you a protective and detective controls in order to safeguard us from all of these attacks, basically. So all of these breaches, basically. So it needs to be aware of both internal and external cyber attacks. So when it comes to the cyber security, it's always a zero trust model. You can never trust anyone, like even myself. Like you can with respect to the cyber security space, everything works under zero trust model. Like you need to prove yourself in order to get access to something. So the multi-factor authentication, or giving a secure pin in order to access. So it is all required. Even for your mobile, you put a security lock so that no one will access your mobile, right? So you need to prove to your mobile that I'm your owner of the mobile. This is my pin. Please let me use my apps in the phone. Let me call to someone. So it's that you are proving to your phone itself, your mobile itself. So you understand when it goes to a real enterprise level security. So the need of identifying someone to the system, actually. So these are all different sections under the cyber security. There are a lot of departments that do the activity. Like it comes from the initial identification to the application vulnerabilities, like you can do a lot of injection attacks and everything. And also once your data is fed into the system, so is there any data breaches that is happening because of the access controls? So that can be due to the network. So and again, when in the someone attacks your system and someone is doing breach to your system, but you are not aware because of lack of monitoring, that is also. So these are all like cybersecurity, a huge world, huge space for everyone to get in. And then it's a huge demanding trend right now in the outer world, because of the trending digital technology. And I just want to give an highlight about the malware in the introduction to security, because that is one of the very key note that happens for any breach, actually, which we are going to see in our upcoming slides. So malware is a malicious software that is installed on a computer without the owner's consent. Say suppose I'll pass on a link to you guys and saying that you can register yourself to get your vaccination done. So you just go and then link and give your details, your Aadhaar numbers, PAN numbers, everything, your location where you wanted it. So I will give a geographical location as India. You can provide. So I am getting your all personal identical data. So the PIA data. So I can get it. So that is like without your consent. But I'm just trying to. That is called a social engineering, basically. But malware is something that I will send you something to install. So click on this link to get an iPhone. So you basically click on that, and in the background there will be a small exe that gets downloaded to your machine. Since you're doing it from your local machine, so it doesn't have any privileges. So it just starts its process, starts sending the data to the third party, the attacker basically. So that is like an malware is nothing but an executed process without your consent, or an executed process without any privileged access basically. Like you don't have an access for that, it just controls everything. Yep. Let's see, like why would we need this cyber security or these security practices basically? With an increase in the usage of internet by many people, exponentially increases the security threats that cause massive harm. That means, so for example, like you have mobile, right? You all, so you are accessing your emails like Gmail or something, like your Facebook chats or everything. So you can go even on your desktop or even on your mobile, even on your tablets, even on your virtual machines. Like if you are so skilled in the cloud, so you don't need any device, you just go to any computer, you take any computer, all you need is a browser, and then you can start doing whatever you want. So with this increasing uses of internet, so with the digital technology and the digitalization is more in handy, the internet is well vast, we are going at a high speed bandwidth internet, so it's easy for anyone to access any of the application. At the same time, you need to have some controls in place, some practices in place to protect your information basically. So that means, I have a virtual machine, I have no, I have my account. So it doesn't mean that anyone can come and post comments on my behalf. It's not like that. So you should always have some controls in place, that log into the system, prove that that account belongs to you. Once you are allowed, then then you identify yourself, and then you get access to only your data, but you cannot access to someone else's data once their privacy is kept in place. So these are all different security practices, so which we will see in the later when we are covering the fundamentals and principles basically. So let's just go to the next slide. Yep, this is my favorite slide. So I'm just giving a lecture about what is the security, cyber security needs for security practices. But what happens, like if I don't have a security practices or security detective or protective controls in place? For instance, um, if you go and if you follow up any security blogs or infosec write-ups somewhere, you would have seen a fancy term these last 2 months in the United States. There was a huge ransomware attack that has happened, that is called Colonial pipeline. So Colonial pipeline is basically a pipeline that sends a fuel or a gas from across 5 states in the United States basically. So this has happened. They're hit by ransomware. The ransomware is nothing but, see, you have to pay some money to an attacker, a hacker, to release your data or to release your access controls and everything. So how it has happened is, interesting part is, the Colonial pipeline, they're not a digital company, they're just a gas supplier, and they have a limited IT infrastructure in their uh, in their offices basically. So they are more into sending the gas or fuel across 5 different states in United States. So they are not so aware and of this, so they don't have user provisioning basically. So when an employee joins into the Colonial pipeline industry, they just register to their system and they can start accessing it. So some employee, so he started browsing something, he logged into the system in the Colonial pipeline network and tried to browse something, and an attacker tried to made himself to download an exe. So basically, so that has given, so even they don't have any authorization controls. That means a privileged access control, like, I'm an admin, I have all rights, I'm a user, I have limited rights. So there is no such controls in the Colonial pipeline. That is control, they are nothing but privileged controls basically, user privileged controls. They don't have anything as such. So that's the reason the attacker has installed a malware into Colonial pipeline employee's machine and tried to take over the complete information, complete, since every employee is an admin there because they don't have any user privilege control. So he has taken the control. So he installed some setups in the Colonial pipeline system. It took 2 months for him to prepare his system for an attack basically. So he made all his established, they don't have any monitoring control, they don't have any detective control, they don't have any sentinel ones or any kind of software that detects that there is an ad hoc process that's getting created because of without user consent. They don't have anything as such. So again, at the end, one day, this gas pipeline and basically was stopped. sending their gas or petrol or fuel to 5 states, and it resulted everyone that increase in prices in the fuel, and there is a lack of shortage, and it alerted United States government the need of security. So because Colonial pipeline guys, they don't have any backups in place, so they have to pay $5 million to the attacker to get back to their system, saying that we will pay you this ransom amount, you please unblock us, give us an access, we want to regain our access to the old systems. They paid that amount because of this user privilege, because of this lack of user privilege and detective controls that something is happening. This has happened. So $5 million, imagine. So then United States has come up passing in and national wide and an international wide jury saying that every company has to have their data backup and recovery process. They should prohibit that. They should they should provide an information that what are your different security controls you need to have. Like if there is an attack that is happening for an organization, you should provide a proof that I have this many controls, I have this many standards in place, so that if anything is there, we are in place. So nowadays it has become a practice that people are prepared to pay this ransom amount to any hacker. Basically they keep some amount in their budgets because we don't know, even though you have all the security controls, there is a chance because of an employee inside an organization have a malicious intent in the mind, so he can take that, right? So you can't believe anyone in the cybersecurity world, including myself. Okay. So next is one of the biggest attack is the solar winds. This is called as a supply chain attack. So solar winds is basically for passing on the deployments and patching up the systems. So this is from Microsoft basically. So why I say supply chain, because this would get installed on everyone's machine and everyone's your server production servers, and then they do the patching of the systems through SolarWinds. They manage. So you have so Facebook has multiple servers across the world, so they can't go one by one to update something, right? They need some automated process. So SolarWinds is a supply chain that sends the patches to the across the servers in the world and do an update. So same way, so an attacker has injected a malicious code in their one of their builds, and then how did they do? So whenever you write some code, there is a signing activity that has to be done. That means, so I'm part of SolarWinds, so I write some code for latest patches. So when you write some code, you need to digitally sign it that, this code is written by me, I'm signing it. So they don't have the digital signatures in place. So an attacker tried to, impersonate SolarWinds, and then he has injected the third party code in such a way that when this update goes to any machine, from that machine it will take the information and pass it to the attacker's machine basically. So if you don't have rules, firewall rules or outbound rules in place, your data is lost. So if there is a new update that is going into all the machines, that means that machine is compromised, you can say. So it is because lack of digital signing on the on your code, it has happened. So this has resulted, this is a very big supply chain attack, you can go and see everywhere in the cybersecurity. So they paid like huge 18 to 19 million dollars to take the massive Russian malware attack, which compromised its flagship Orient technology management. So SolarWinds is not a small organization or industry, it's a very big, very huge. It's used by Microsoft, Amazon, like all the big firms, you name, you see, they all use the SolarWinds because that's one of the biggest breaches that has happened in 2021. So everyone had their lessons. So they had, even though a product is well secure, it's an ISO certified, or it has all the compliance related to it, but still, it is about cybersecurity is everyone's. Like it's a shared responsibility model. Everyone has a responsibility. Yeah, I'm using your product. It doesn't mean that your product is safe. I should have my own controls in place. Even though your software comes into my system, it cannot do. It can only do what it can do, but it cannot do anything. So for example, I have a firewall rules. Firewall, right? Firewall is nothing but, so in a simple words, incoming request and outgoing request. So for example, I have my machine, right? So you're connected to your router to get the internet. So in the router, I can configure what all incoming informations I can see, what all outgoing. Like an attacker, I can set like, my machine should only accept Gmail. I can only see only Gmails, but I cannot see anything else. I cannot browse Facebook or anything. So I'll set firewall rules on my router such that it blocks the incoming request. It blocks the outgoing request. So they're nothing but ingress and egress, they call it as. So if you have that things in place, so even though SolarWinds is compromised, nothing can happen because you have strong firewall rules in place. So even though your attacker's code wants to send the data to the outer world, they cannot because you have strong firewall rules in place. So you should always, have these security controls in place everywhere, even as well. So the next comes is the EA games breach, one of the favorite one. So let me walk through what has happened, and then I will tell you the learnings of it and why do we need to know the security fundamentals and design principles, basically. So a member among us, the hackers, had approached motherboard in an online chat. So right, online chats are nothing but the bots they have. And then the hacking process started by purchasing a stolen cookies and sold them for $10 online. That means these there is someone called as crypt kiddies. So basically, what's their job is, so they just try to intercept every big organizations or like most used companies like a Facebook or any industry you take. So they try to sniff through the traffic and then steal the cookies and they sell it. Like, so if you have a cookie that expiration time is 1 year, I saw literally in my professional experience, I saw the people said cookies expiration day time to like 1 year or 5 months until the browser session expires. So there are a lot ways you can do, like it's on our hands, those configurations. So what the attackers will do, they steal those cookies and they put it in a place and they sell them for a cheap rate. So one member, he approached it and he's also a hacker, so he has bought them for $10. And then what he has done, let's see the interesting part. Doing this helped them to gain access to Slack channels used by enterprise, EA games. Basically the Slack channels are nothing but the chats, basically. So the so organization of chats in a single window. Basically the Slack channels are organizes the data inside any organization. So that so the hacker said, so next day he has a legitimate cookie, but EA has multi-factor authentication. That means even though you have a cookie, you need to prove yourself that you are the actual user. So that means you need to provide an OTP pin or something. So this hacker is a smart guy. He said that we texted in chat with an IT support member because he has access to the Slack channels. So Slack channels are nothing but he has a history of the organization, IT chat industry, organization of the IT chat data, basically. So he said we texted the chat with the IT support member of an EA team and told them that our phone was misplaced at a party last night. So he lied to them. He said that, yeah, I lost my phone in yesterday's night. I want access to my EA Sports account. So basically, the hacker had requested a multi-factor authentication. So they can provide tokens in the backend, right? So they do that. So the hackers had requested a multi-factor authentication token from EA IT Sport to gain access to EA corporate network. So MFAs, so basically multi-factor authentication, the tokens are replacements for your OTP pins are basically. So once you prove your, so I have an account with EA. I have my user ID and password. I also have a mobile that I get a pin and I need to validate myself in order to get access to my account. So he said the phone is lost. He has a cookie, which is a replacement for your username and password. So next he needs a and pin. So he doesn't have a mobile, so he need to get the token. So token is a replacement for the pin. So once you authenticate yourself, then only you get a token. So he impersonated with the chat and he got seen the Slack channels. So he has got into the EA corporate account. Then um, he said that it has happened twice. And inside the ES network, hacker found a service for EA developers, which was used for compiling games. So he's into our system network basically, and he has every access to anything. So he got into the corporate network and he found services where like everything, even though you play games, they're all in the back end. There's some kind of software that needs to be compiled and executed with some certain rules, right? The same way, so he has got hold of these machines which compile these games, and then he successfully logged in and created his own virtual machine in the corporate network, and then tried to see what are all different types of services inside the EA, and he at the end he downloaded all the source code of these games. Basically, if you are if they know the source code for your game, that then that means you're done, right? Because I have a web application, so I have a Facebook, so I have the source code of it. If someone gets the source code of it, it's just a minute's job for me to set up facebookb.com. So it just takes like a matter of time. Source code binaries are one of the biggest thing for anything to sustain in the digital world. So you need to protect your source code as well. So this is the EA games breach. So considering this breach, like what are all different perspectives you have, what are all different security controls that are missing here? So one, first is cookies. So basically, the application security is not proper. The stolen cookies have long expiration time. That means it's a misconfiguration from an application, and that also needs for your application testing as well. So they didn't do any security assessment for those things, and the defense in depth, it's lost because an attacker tries to impersonate himself and then got his multi-factor authentication token. That means he spoofed himself, so his authentication got failed, his multi-factor authentication got failed, and he has got access to the corporate network. That means you don't have any access controls at all, right? um, and then so that leads to the confidentiality is lost, the integrity is lost, and he logged into the machine and he did the virtual, so there is no repudiations that he has done something, so they don't log anything, they don't have any monitoring in place. And the availability, basically the availability is lost because the source code is lost, so he can try to put something in their existing code and then bluff, he can fizz the existing code. So he has gone into the network, he has got access to the source code. That means he can add some fuzzy code in somewhere that the games won't even run, and then he can set up his own EA, so no one will ever know that because of these availabilities. Okay, so these are all different failures which cause this EA games breach that has happened.